It was past 1 after midnight, and San Francisco felt like a ghost town. The city that buzzes with tourists and commuters by day had emptied out, leaving only distant sirens, the hum of a street lamp, and a faint neon glow from a diner sign down the block. I walked briskly down Folsom Street, hands shoved in my jacket pockets to ward off the chill of the bay breeze. The sidewalk was slick from an earlier fog. Each of my footsteps echoed against darkened storefronts. Normally, I loved the city's midnight calm, but that night something felt off. I remember telling myself I was just being paranoid, that I'd walked this route dozens of times without a problem. I had just left my friend's apartment in Soma after a movie night. He'd offered to let me crash on his couch since it was late, but I insisted I'd be fine. It was only a 15-minute walk to my own place near Mission Bay. I plugged in my earbuds but kept the volume low, a little habit I picked up to stay aware of my surroundings at night. As I passed under a highway overpass, I noticed how the shadows seemed to stir and stretch along the walls. That's when a prickle of unease ran up my neck. About 2 blocks ahead, a lone car idled at an intersection beneath a broken streetlight. Its headlights were off, which was odd. Probably just waiting for someone, I thought, trying to reassure myself. But as I got closer, the car, a dark van, I realized suddenly roared to life and turned down the very street I was on. It drove past me slowly, too slowly. I couldn't see the driver's face through the glare of the windshield, but I felt his eyes on me. My heart thumped harder, and I glanced over my shoulder as the van crept down the block and disappeared around a corner. Relax, man, I mumbled under my breath. Maybe he was just lost or looking for parking. People creep along these side streets all the time, right? I tried to shrug it off, but my hands were trembling slightly in my pockets. The van was gone, and I chided myself for being jumpy. I was nearing an all-night convenience store I often stopped at, hoping to see the familiar neon glow and reassuring fluorescence. But as I approached, I saw the metal grate pulled down over the entrance. They had closed early. My stomach sank. The one oasis of light on this block was dark. Now it was just me in the silent street again. Suddenly, a soft scuff of shoe on pavement sounded behind me. I froze mid-step. The noise stopped too. In the glass of a bus shelter to my right, I caught a flicker of movement about 20 feet back. Someone was there, walking the same path I'd just taken. They slowed down when I slowed down. Was I being followed? My mouth went dry. I resumed walking. Faster this time, my mind racing. Don't panic. It's probably just another person heading home. Yet every instinct screamed that something was wrong. I didn't dare turn around fully. Instead, I crossed to the other side of the street, hoping to signal that I knew someone was back there. The figure behind me did the same, crossing in tandem a few seconds later. That's when dread began to pool in my stomach like ice water. My apartment was still 6 blocks away. The streets were completely empty, no cars, no open shops, nobody to ask for help. I slipped my hand out of my pocket and gripped my phone, heart hammering. I considered calling 911, but what would I even say? I think I'm being followed by someone. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting. Maybe I should call a rideshare to get out of here, I thought. With a shaking thumb, I opened the rideshare app, but the screen blinked uselessly. No cars available at this hour. As I passed under another lamp, it flickered and went out, as if on cue. Just great, I whispered, pulse racing. Up ahead, I spotted an alleyway that cut over to the next street, a bit of a shortcut toward a busier road. In that moment, my panicked brain reasoned that a busier street meant a better chance of finding someone, anyone, still around. I veered toward the alley, deciding at the last second to take it. Halfway through the alley, I regretted it. It was narrow and littered with trash bags, the smell of rotten food making me gag. My footsteps sounded so loud on the concrete, each step announcing my location. The alley entrance behind me yawned empty. Maybe I'd lost whoever was trailing me? Then, as if to answer, I heard running footsteps closing in fast. Before I could react, someone slammed into me from behind. I cried out as I was thrown off balance, stumbling forward and catching myself on a brick wall. A strong arm hooked around my chest and a hand clamped over my mouth. In the dim glow of distant lights, I saw a figure in a dark hoodie pressing against me. "Don't fight." A low male voice hissed in my ear, inches away. Panic exploded through me. He tried to yank me backward, but I planted my feet, kicking and twisting with pure adrenaline. I managed to turn my head enough to bite down on his palm. He yelped in pain, and his grip on my face loosened just a bit. "Help!" I screamed, the sound muffled but loud enough to echo in the alley. Raw terror fueled my voice. The man's arm tightened angrily around my ribs, squeezing the air out of me. But he hesitated, maybe startled by my scream bouncing off the alley walls. In that split second, headlights burst into life at the far end of the alley. I squinted and saw it was the dark van from before, now blocking the alley's exit ahead. The back door of the van slid open with a heavy rattle. This is it, I thought. A surge of cold dread nearly buckled my knees. They're going to take me. No. I shouted, voice cracking, and threw my elbow back with every ounce of strength. I felt it connect with my attacker's ribs. He grunted in pain. His grip on me slackened and I wrenched free, stumbling forward. The van's high beams blazed on, blinding me. I threw up an arm to shield my eyes and veered to the side just as another figure, a second man, jumped out of the van to grab me. A rough hand snagged the sleeve of my jacket, but I twisted away so hard I actually slipped out of the jacket entirely. The fabric tore as I yanked free. I bolted back the way I'd come, heart pounding so hard it hurt, adrenaline screaming at me to run faster. Behind me I heard angry shouts and the slam of the van's door. I burst out of the alley and back onto the street, legs pumping. I nearly fell as my shoes skidded on the curb. There was no one around, just rows of darkened buildings and parked cars. Think. I spotted a narrow gap between two dumpsters behind an old restaurant, and without hesitation, I lunged for it. I wedged myself into the foul-smelling gap, pressing my back to the cold brick wall. My chest heaved. I clamped a hand over my mouth, trying to silence the ragged gasps of air. Seconds later, I heard the van's engine revving as it sped around the corner. The beam of its headlights swept across the street. Through a slit between the dumpsters, I watched the van crawl by like a predator sniffing out prey. It was so close I could see the silhouette of the driver's head. My crumpled jacket hung from the passenger side window, dangling like some sick trophy. A whimper escaped my throat before I could stop it. The van rolled to a stop almost directly in front of my hiding spot. I felt my blood turn to ice. Did they see me slip in here? I gripped a broken glass bottle at my feet, the only potential weapon I could find, and held my breath. For a few endless seconds, the van idled. I could taste metal in my mouth. I was biting my tongue without realizing it. Then a man's voice shouted from somewhere down the block, shattering the silence. "Hey, what's going on back there? I'm calling the cops." It was distant, but unmistakably someone awake, someone alerting the neighborhood. A porch light flicked on across the street. I heard one of my pursuers snarl from the van. The engine revved loud and angry, and suddenly the tires squealed. The van sped off into the night, red taillights fading around the corner in seconds. I didn't move. I couldn't. I stayed curled behind those dumpsters, shaking uncontrollably, until I was sure the van was long gone. Only then did I crawl out, legs like jelly beneath me. The street was eerily quiet again, as if nothing had happened. My jacket lay abandoned on the asphalt. I snatched it up with trembling hands. There was a long slash through the sleeve where it had caught on something, and it was smeared with dirt and maybe a little blood. I wasn't sure whose. A neighbor, the one who shouted, cautiously poked his head out his door up the block, yelling, "You okay?" I could barely form words, but I managed a shaky wave and croaked. "They're gone." My voice broke. The adrenaline was wearing off, and suddenly I felt the full weight of what almost happened. I almost disappeared. The police arrived within minutes. By then, I was sitting on the curb under that broken streetlight, my torn jacket draped around me like a blanket. I gave the officers all the detail I could. The dark blue van with maybe partial plates 7X something. 2 men in dark clothing. one maybe 6 feet tall, the other stockier. I was apologizing for not remembering more. My brain was fried with shock. An officer gently told me I had nothing to apologize for, that I was lucky to have gotten away. Hearing that sent a strange mix of relief and survivor's guilt through me. Lucky. I was lucky some stranger was brave enough to yell out into the dark. Lucky they got scared off. Lucky to be standing here. In the days after, I replayed that night on a loop, second-guessing everything. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that alley, the hand over my mouth, that helpless feeling as the van door slid open. I haven't walked alone at night since. The city I love, the city I thought I knew so well, now feels treacherous after dark. Each time I pass a van on the street, my pulse spikes and I have to remind myself that lightning doesn't usually strike twice. Mark, my friend who I told all this to, says I've developed a sixth sense about people around me now. Maybe he's right. I do find myself watching every stranger a little more closely. Paranoia, hypervigilance, call it what you will. I call it survival instinct. I carry pepper spray. I plan my routes more carefully. And I always trust that gut feeling that says something's not right. I wanted to share my story as a cautionary tale. Not to say never go out at night, but to remind others that bad things can happen when you least expect. I was a block from familiar turf on streets I'd walked my whole life, and still I came within inches of vanishing that night. I still get chills thinking about how a normal night out almost turned into a nightmare I do never wake up from. These days, I take nothing for granted. Every uneventful walk home is a gift, and if I ever get that feeling again, that something's off feeling, you can bet I'll listen to it and get myself someplace safe. I was lucky to escape, but I know not everyone gets that chance. So please, stay alert and stay safe. Because once you've had a brush with the kind of horror I did, you realize it can happen to anyone, even in a city you thought you knew.